The rain hammered down like accusations Colton couldn't outrun, soaking through his thin shirt as he bolted from the old Victorian house in Haven Point, Maine, the scent of pine and salt clinging to his skin like a curse. His mother's voices echoed behind him, sharp with betrayal. Colton, think of the pack, the alliance. But he didn't look back, tires screeching on the gravel drive as he floored the gas toward the interstate. 10 years ago, Ronan Blackwood had shattered him with a single whispered lie in the dim light of a summer bonfire, leaving Colton to stitch his Omega instincts back together alone. Now, facing an arranged bond to some faceless alpha from a rival pack to secure family lands, Colton swore he'd never let another claim break him again. He drove through the night, the dashboard clock ticking past midnight, his hands white-knuckled on the wheel, every mile a rebellion against the heat low in his belly that biology demanded he ignore. Seattle loomed on the horizon by dawn, its steel spires cutting through the fog like promises of anonymity, a city where Omegas like him could vanish into the hum of hospitals and harbors. Colton parked crookedly outside a dingy motel on the outskirts, the neon sign flickering vacancy like a siren's call, and collapsed onto the sagging bed, chest heaving not from the run, but from the ghost of Ronan's touch, rough hands on his waist, breath hot against his neck, the betrayal that followed like winter's bite. By morning, the adrenaline ebbed, leaving a hollow ache that no suppressant could touch. Colton showered under scalding water, scrubbing at the faint bonding scars on his collarbone, relics from a heat he'd endured alone after Ronan vanished without a word. He was Dr. Colton Hawthorne now, MD from Johns Hopkins, top of his class in emergency medicine, the Omega who'd clawed his way from pack expectations to a residency at Harborview Medical Center. No more arranged fates, no more alphas dictating his worth by scent alone. He dressed in crisp scrubs, the fabrica armor against his own vulnerability, and stepped into the gray light of a new life, the space needle piercing the clouds like a needle ready to draw blood. The first shift blurred into a frenzy of sutures and sedatives, the ER a chaotic symphony of beeps and cries that drowned out the pull of his Omega nature. Colton moved like a shadow among the patients, a beta construction worker with a crushed hand, an alpha teen ODing on street suppressants, his hand steady, voice calm, even as his own heat cycle loomed on the calendar, a ticking bomb he'd medicate through. "You're going to be fine," he murmured to the kid, injecting the antidote with precision, ignoring the way the alpha's pheromones spiked in fear, stirring Colton's instincts to soothe, to submit. He bit down on the urge, focusing on the chart, the monitors, anything but the loneliness carving deeper with each passing hour. Lunch was a protein bar scarfed in the break room, surrounded by betas chattering about weekend hikes in the Cascades. Colton nodded along, forcing smiles, his mind drifting to Haven Point's endless winters, the pack elders' decrees that Omegas like him were vessels for alliances, not dreams. His phone buzzed, a text from his sister Lila. "Mom's furious. Come home. The Blackwoods are calling it off anyway." Blackwoods. The name hit like ice water. Ronan's pack, the one his family sought to bind through this sham marriage. Colton's thumb hovered, then deleted the message unread. He wouldn't go back. Not for them. Not for anyone. Afternoon brought a slowdown, the rain easing to a drizzle that mirrored the tears he wouldn't shed. He slipped out for coffee at a corner shop in Capitol Hill, the air thick with the roast of beans and the undercurrent of urban alphas prowling for unclaimed Omegas. Colton kept his head down, suppressant patch itching at his neck, but the barista, a lanky beta with tattoos snaking up his arms, slid the cup over with a wink. "Rough day, Doc? You look like you could use a real meal." Colton managed a laugh, genuine for the first time since fleeing, and pocketed the guy's number scribbled on a napkin. Maybe Seattle wouldn't swallow him whole. Maybe he could build something here, roots in concrete instead of the tangled vines of pack loyalty. Back at the hospital, night shift loomed, but Colton lingered in the rooftop garden. The city sprawled below like a glittering web. He lit a rare cigarette, a vice from med school stress, inhaling deeply, the smoke curling toward the stars hidden by light pollution. That's when the first crack appeared, a news alert on his phone, local feed buzzing about a high-profile alpha surgeon transferring to Harborview from Boston General. Dr. Ronan Blackwood, trauma specialist, decorated veteran of war zones, the man who'd once held Colton's heart in his palm and crushed it. Colton's knees buckled, the cigarette tumbling from numb fingers. No, it couldn't be. But the photo confirmed it. Those storm gray eyes, that chiseled jaw shadowed by stubble, the the faint scar above his lip from a teenage brawl. Ronan here, in his sanctuary. Denial surged first, hot and fierce, as Colton stormed back to the ER lockers, slamming his phone away like it burned. Coincidence. Seattle was big enough for both of them to ghost through without colliding. He changed into street clothes, a hoodie that swallowed his frame, and headed to the motel, the drive a blur of red taillights and pounding rain. Sleep evaded him, sheets twisting around legs that remembered Ronan's weight, the way he'd pinned Colton against the dunes that summer, whispering promises of forever before ghosting from med school, leaving only a note. This can't work. You're too good for my chaos. Too good. The words had festered, turning Colton's Omega fire into a banked ember, fueling his drive to prove he needed no alpha to burn bright. Dawn broke gray and unrelenting, mirroring the resolve hardening in Colton's chest. He'd face the shift, bury the panic under layers of professionalism. Harborview's halls buzzed with the transfer news by the time he clocked in, nurses whispering about the hot alpha doc, with the military buzz cut and a trail of broken hearts. Colton tuned it out, diving into a multi-car pileup influx, triaging fractures and lacerations with mechanical efficiency. Hours melted away in the fluorescent glare, his body a vessel for saving others, until the intercom crackled. Dr. Hawthorne to Trauma Bay 3. Incoming critical. He pushed through the doors on autopilot, gloves snapping into place, the metallic tang of blood hitting him like a wave. The patient was a beta cyclist, helmet shattered, femur compound fractured, but it was the consulting surgeon barking orders that froze Colton mid-stride. Ronan, towering in scrubs that hugged his broad chest, sleeves rolled to reveal corded forearms veined from years of field work, his alpha presence flooding the room like ozone before a storm, commanding, unyielding, laced with that damned sandalwood scent Colton had once craved. Their eyes locked across the gurney, Ronan's widening in shock, Colton's narrowing to slits of raw fury. Colton, Ronan breathed, voice rough as gravel, the scalpel pausing in his grip. The team faltered, sensing the electric tension, but Colton shoved forward, yanking the trauma kit open with trembling hands. Focus, Dr. Blackwood, he snapped, the words laced with venom sweeter than any suppressant. Patience coding. They worked in furious tandem, Ronan's deep timbre directing compressions while Colton threaded the central line, their bodies inches apart, heat radiating like a live wire. Every brush of elbow, every shared glance crackled with unspoken history. The bonfire kisses, the stolen nights in Ronan's truck, the dawn when he'd walked away without a backward glance. The patient stabilized, monitors beeping steady victory, but the room emptied to a hush that amplified the pounding in Colton's ears. He stripped off his gloves, tossing them into the biohazard bin with lethal precision. What the hell are you doing here? The question exploded from him, low and lethal, as Ronan turned, those gray eyes searching his face like he'd never left. I could ask you the same, Ronan replied, voice dropping to that intimate rumble that once unraveled Colton's defenses. He stepped closer, too close, the alpha instinct to dominate warring with something softer, regret perhaps, in the lines etched around his mouth. Transferred for the program. Didn't know you'd be. Save it. Colton backed toward the door, heart hammering against ribs that felt too fragile. I fled an arranged marriage to escape this, your pack's shadow over mine. And now you're here, like some cosmic joke. Ronan's face paled, the scar twitching as he reached out, but Colton jerked away, the contact burning like acid. Stay out of my bay. Stay out of my life. He fled to the locker room, slamming the door on Ronan's call of his name, sinking to the tile floor as sobs clawed up his throat. The man who'd broken him, taught him love's sharpest edge before yanking it away, was no longer a memory but flesh and blood, alpha scent invading his sanctuary. Colton pressed his forehead to his knees, breathing through the surge of Omega need that biology betrayed him with, a treacherous pull toward the very storm he'd escaped. Seattle wasn't big enough after all. The days blurred into a tense standoff, Colton mapping Harborview's corridors like a battlefield to avoid Ronan's orbit. Mornings started with double espressos at the Hilltop Cafe, the barista, Jax, with his easy grin and beta steadiness, becoming a tentative anchor, their texts a lifeline of normalcy amid the chaos. Saw that new surgeon on the news, Jax messaged one evening. Looks like trouble. You okay? Colton stared at the screen, thumbs hovering, before typing back a lie. All good. Beers Friday. Anything to drown the echo of Ronan's voice in his dreams, the way it haunted his sleep with murmurs of what-ifs. Shifts were minefields. Ronan respected the distance at first, nodding curtly in halls, his presence a gravitational pull that tugged at Colton's resolve. But the ER demanded collaboration. A mass casualty drill where they were paired for triage, Ronan's hand steadying Colton's arm during a simulated evacuation, the touch lingering a beat too long. "You're incredible at this," Ronan murmured, gray eyes intense under the harsh lights. "Always were." Colton wrenched free, the compliment a barb twisting in old wounds. "Don't. You lost that right a decade ago." Nights brought the real torment. Alone in his cramped apartment overlooking Elliott Bay, the ferries cutting wakes like scars on the water. Colton pored over case files by lamplight, but his mind wandered to Haven Point, the arranged bond his mothers had orchestrated with Ronan's cousin, a safe alpha match to mend pack fractures. He'd bolted not just from duty, but from the fear that submission would erase the fire Ronan had ignited, only to douse it. Suppressants dulled the edge, but preheat symptoms crept in. Feverish skin, restless dreams where Ronan's hands mapped him again, claiming what he'd once promised. A week in, the collision came inevitable as tide. Post-shift, Colton lingered in the rooftop garden, nursing a thermos of tea against the autumn chill, the city lights winking like distant fires. Footsteps crunched gravel. Ronan, hands shoved in pockets, broad shoulders hunched against the wind. "Can't avoid me forever, Eli." The nickname sliced deep, evoking hayloft afternoons and whispered confessions. Colton set the thermos down, voice steel. "Watch me." Ronan closed the distance, stopping just shy of touching, his scent, wood smoke and salt, wrapping around Colton like chains. "I saw the alert about the marriage. Your pack messaged mine. I told them no, that I'd handle it." A bitter laugh escaped Colton. "Handle it? Like you handled us? You left me heat-sick and shattered, Ronan. For your chaos." "What, the military? The glory?" Ronan's jaw tightened, eyes storm-dark. "I left to protect you. My father's pack was toxic. Debts, violence. I couldn't drag you into that hell." "Liar." The word hung heavy, Colton's chest heaving. "You could have fought. Instead, you ran." Ronan's hand lifted, hesitating, then cupped Colton's cheek, thumb tracing the bone with a tenderness that buckled knees. "I never stopped loving you. Every battlefield, every scar, it was you I came back for in my head." The confession cracked something in Colton, tears hot on his lashes, omega instincts warring with the human scar tissue. He leaned in despite himself, lips brushing Ronan's in a ghost of a kiss, then shoved him back, raw and reeling. "Too late. I'm not your redemption arc." He fled again, heart pounding down the stairwell, the taste of Ronan lingering like regret. Back in his apartment, Colton curled on the couch, phone clutched like a grenade. Jax's invite to a queer bar in Pioneer Square blinked, a chance at distraction, at betas who wouldn't demand his soul. He dressed sharp, collar unbuttoned to bare the scars, and stepped into the night, bass thumping from the velvet room, bodies swaying under strobe lights. Jax found him at the bar, all easy charm and lingering hugs, pulling him onto the floor where sweat-slicked skin and laughter drowned the ache. But even there, Ronan's shadow followed. A text as Colton stumbled home buzzed. "I'm sorry. Let me make it right." Delete. Block. Yet sleep brought dreams of bonfires and broken promises, waking him sweat-damp and aching, the heat cycle cresting like a wave he couldn't outswim. At work, Ronan cornered him in the supply closet during a lull, alpha presence overwhelming in the dim space. "I know about the heat. Let me help. As a doctor, nothing more." Colton's laugh was hollow. "You think I trust you with my vulnerability? After everything?" Ronan's eyes softened, hand pressing a vial of custom suppressants into Colton's palm, stronger, tailored. "I developed them in Kandahar for omegas like you, cut off from packs. Take them, please." The gesture undid Colton, fingers closing around the cool glass, a bridge he hadn't asked for. "Why now?" he whispered. Ronan stepped closer, foreheads touching, breaths mingling. "Because seeing you again. It's like waking up. I broke us once. I won't again." The dam broke then, Colton surging forward, lips crashing against Ronan's in a kiss born of fury and famine, hands fisting in scrubs as Alpha growled low, pinning him to the shelves with possessive care. It was fire and forgiveness, teeth nipping, tongues tangling. Ronan's scent flooding Colton's senses until the world narrowed to this, reclaiming what was stolen. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, the air thick with unspoken vows. "This doesn't fix it," Colton panted, even as his body arched into the touch. Ronan nodded, thumb stroking his swollen lip. I know, but it's a start. What followed was a fragile truce, stolen moments in shadowed corners. Coffee runs where Ronan's laugh rumbled like thunder, late-night texts dissecting cases with an intimacy that blurred professional lines. Colton let Jax down gently over pancakes, the beta's understanding not a balm, freeing him to explore this resurrection. But Haven Point's tendrils tightened, a call from Lila, voice trembling. The packs are escalating. They want Colton back for the bond, or blood. Ronan's pack, sensing weakness in his return, pushed for the alliance, dangling debts Colton's family couldn't pay. The conflict simmered, bubbling into confrontation at a mandatory pack summit flown in under corporate guise. Alphas and Omegas from East Coast enclaves gathering in a Seattle waterfront hotel, since clashing like storm fronts. Colton arrived armored in a tailored suit, Ronan at his side not as mate but ally, their hands brushing under the table in silent solidarity. The elders, grizzled betas with ledgers of grudges, laid out terms. The arranged marriage to Ronan's cousin, or forfeiture of Hawthorne lands, leaving Colton's mothers destitute. You fled your duty, Ronan's uncle snarled, eyes raking Colton with disdain. Omegas don't get to choose. Ronan surged to his feet, voice a whip crack. He chooses. We all do. The room erupted, pheromones spiking, but Colton stood, heart steady for the first time. I choose freedom. Over fear. Over you. Gasps rippled, but Ronan's hand found his. Alpha strength a quiet anchor. Betrayal struck swift as a scalpel that night. Ronan's cousin, Harlan, cornered Colton in the hotel garage, reeking of bourbon and rage. He'll leave you again, Omega? Always does. The punch landed before Colton could dodge, fist cracking against jaw, blood blooming copper on his tongue. He fought back, knee to groin, nails raking, but Harlan's alpha bulk pinned him to the concrete, breath hot with threat. Submit, or your family burns. Ronan burst in like avenging fury, wrenching Harlan off with a roar that shook the rafters, fists flying in a blur of bone and bruise. Security swarmed, but the damage etched deep. Ronan's knuckles split, Colton's lips swelling purple, the summit fracturing into accusations. In the aftermath, hotel room dim with lamplight, Ronan cleaned Colton's wounds with saline-dipped gauze, hands trembling. I should have protected you sooner. Colton cupped his face, tasting salt of tears. You are now. The romance deepened in the quiet after, Ronan moving into Colton's apartment under pretense of pack negotiations. Their nights a tapestry of tentative touches, slow dances in the kitchen to jazz on vinyl. Ronan's fingers tracing spine as Colton cooked pasta, whispers of futures unpainted by duty. Heat hit like monsoon, Colton writhing under waves of need, but Ronan knelt patient, scenting his neck with reverence, guiding him through without claim, a bond built on choice not force. You're mine because you want to be, Ronan murmured against fevered skin, they're joining a symphony of gasps and grips, Alpha not locking them in ecstasy that healed more than hurt. Yet shadows lingered. Ronan's past resurfaced in nightmares, flashbacks to IED blasts, the guilt that drove him from Colton originally, a letter from his father unearthed. Don't come back with an Omega weakness. Betrayal's echo, Harlan's whispers fueling doubt. Colton woke one dawn to Ronan packing, face ashen. I can't risk you in my storm. Panic clawed Colton's throat. You promised, no more running. The climax crested in a ferry crossing to Bainbridge, storm winds lashing the deck as Ronan confessed the full rot. His pack's debts tied to Harlan's schemes, a setup to force the marriage and bleed the Hawthorns dry. I came back to end it. But if I stay, they target you. Colton gripped the rail, rain stinging, heart fracturing anew. Then we end it together. No more ghosts. They stormed the pack enclave in Haven Point, winter snow blanketing the pines like shrouds. Allies rallied. Lila at Colton's side, Jax flown in for moral muscle. The showdown in the town hall was primal, alphas circling, but Ronan and Colton stood united, voices rising in indictment. Harlan lunged, knife flashing, but Colton disarmed him with Yarhone precision, Ronan's tackle sealing the fall. Truths spilled, ledgers forged, alliances poisoned, packs splintering under the weight. In the hush after, elders yielded, lands secured not by bonds but bargains. Ronan knelt before Colton in the snow-dusted square, not in submission, but plea. Be my equal. My partner. No Alpha Omega script. Colton pulled him up, kiss fierce under the aurora-veiled sky. Always was. Months wove into healing. A quiet wedding in Seattle's cherry blossoms. Pacts were formed around consent, not coercion. Colton thrived in residency, Ronan mentoring with pride untarnished by possession. They built a home in Capitol Hill, walls echoing with laughter, nights tangled in sheets where vulnerabilities were shared, not shamed. The man who'd broken him became the one who mended, a testament that love, reclaimed, forges stronger than fate's chains. In the end, as they watched sunsets from their porch, Colton traced Ronan's scars, whispering, "You didn't break me. You made me whole." Freedom wasn't flight, but facing the storm hand in hand, compassionate, unyielding, true to the wild heart beneath.